mini plenary session. There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you, honorable members. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition to the rules of the virtual sittings, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of the debate, shall apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said on the virtual platform is deemed to have been said to the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphones and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and connect your video. Members may make use of the icons on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows members to put up his or her hand to raise points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjection. Honorable members, we shall now proceed to the order, which is debate on vote 20, which is the Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities Appropriation Bill. Having said that, I will now recognize the Honorable, the Minister of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, Menkwana Mashabane Leamogetso.
Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members, it is an honor to present 2022 budget for speech of the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities in this year, the 25th year anniversary of South Africa's formally adopting the Constitution of South Africa as our own. The coming into effect of our democratic institution marked a decisive break from the apartheid past, and it ushered a new South African based on democratic values of human dignity, non-racialism, non-sexism, and freedom. While women in their diversity played a crucial role in drafting and development of the world-renowned Constitution, women continue to suffer the second pandemic of gender-based violence and femicide perpetrated by men and economic exclusion. Of course, they've not been spared of the dreaded other pandemic, which is global COVID-19. However, Regardless of all these gendered challenges, women of South Africa are still standing more resolute than in order to realize the promises enshrined in the Constitution. One of the stalwarts of our liberation struggle, Mayor Gertrude Chopin, once said, and I quote, "Every generation has got a responsibility to know what its mission is. Mine was to liberate the country. What is yours?" Close quote. Honorable members, as the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, we will continue in line with our mandate to advocate, monitor, evaluate, regulate for the rights of the empowerment of women, youth, and regulate for the rights of empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, as enshrined in the Constitution. The empowerment of women, youth, persons with disabilities cannot be achieved with socioeconomic transformation society. We must advocate for the acceleration of economic growth to overcome the triple challenges of inequality, unemployment, poverty, which always bears the feminine face, which are the breeding ground of the gender-based violence and femicide. We are determined to ensure that in the 8 years remaining to reach 50-50 target of gender equality, according to Goal 5 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, on gender equality and commitments at the 5th World Conference of Women in Beijing through Beijing Platform for Action and Critical Areas of Concern. In this regard, South Africa has joined the Generation Equality Forum to accelerate the implementation of programs and projects to reach gender equality by 2030. Honorable Chairperson, in order to eradicate the pandemic of gender-based violence and femicide, it is critical that we all implement National Strategic Plan and gender-based violence and femicide. Accordingly, the impact of the National Strategic Plan can only be realized when all sectors of our society play their part. I'm pleased to inform you that this August House at the Interministerial Committee, which I chair, continue to do its work coordinating and implementing the National Strategic Plan. In this regard, the department plays a leadership role in advocating for, coordinating, monitoring, evaluating, and the implementation of the National Strategic Plan. To date, several strides have been made, including the following: the National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide draft bill is currently being consulted with NADLAC and will be tabled in Parliament in June 2022. The multi-sectoral rapid response teams are in the process of being established in all provinces, districts, and local municipalities. We are working closely with municipalities and other sectors and departments through COGTA to ensure integration and of the priorities of the NSP. GBVF is the district development model and is in the district development model and integrated development plans. Through European Union funded program, technical monitors and data captures have been placed in 3 pilot projects in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape and Gauteng to enhance the capacity of the provinces to implement the NSP and gender budgeting framework. The plan is to roll out the support and the remaining 6 provinces during the 2022-2023 financial year. Through the support of the German funding, the department is developing the National Prevention Strategy on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. We must ensure that national departments integrate gender-based violence and femicide priorities into strategic and annual performance plans. The department coordinated and consolidate the submission of monthly progress reports on the implementation of the strategic plan to the President. We have, in partnership with Santaco, initiated the training of the taxi drivers and owners on gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable members, on the 4th May 2022, I launched the South African Gender Assessment Report partnership with World Bank, which highlights that overall, South Africa has made progress towards gender equality since 1994. South Africa is among the top 10 of countries globally in the world to have successfully implemented reforms to improve women's legal rights. 2, South Africa is ranked number 18 globally according to the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Index 2021. 3, South Africa is second in SADC states according to WEF Gender Gap Index, again 2021. South Africa has achieved gender parity in primary and secondary school levels and is closing gender gap in rates of adult literacy. There is notable progress in the number of women in parliament, despite the significant progress made since the dawn of democracy. The report also highlights that women remain marginalized in the mainstream economy and economic opportunities available in the country. In addition, the persistence of high levels of gender-based violence and femicide in the country continue to threaten the livelihoods of marginalized groups and compromise the overall development of our nation. Honorable Chair, our department has also partnered with the World Bank in collaboration with SARS to release a report on women and trade facilitation in South Africa. The findings of the report highlights the challenges that women in business face with regard to exports. The report shows how mainstreaming of gender into matters of customs processes and export procedures can significantly reduce the barriers women continue to face in trade. In youth issues, I welcome the appointment of the new board of National Youth Development Agency, NYDA, and I'm very excited that since the inception of the agency, we now have first executive chairperson and deputy being young women. I look forward to working with the new board in addressing the challenges facing our young people in the country. I'm also delighted to announce that the NYDA Amendment Bill has been tabled in Parliament on the 26th of April 2022. Furthermore, the integrated youth development strategy, as well as monitoring and evaluation work of the National Youth Policy 2030 will soon be submitted to Cabinet for approval. This will enable us to monitor the implementation of the National Youth Policy across the sectors. This year, June 16, will be celebrated in the Eastern Cape and will be addressed by His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. All members of Parliament are invited to participate in all the interactions with our young people. Honorable members, we must harness the potential of our youthful population. This includes the political will by government and captains of industry to ensure an integration of youth across all strategic sectors of our society, especially the economy. The NYDA supports the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention by providing the following: SA MOBI, which is a free employment network that provides youth with access in learning and employment opportunities. Youth Explorer, a youth portal that provides a range of information. Empower, location-based mobile app that provides employment and entrepreneurship opportunities. Wi-Fi exports within their immediate vicinity. In the 2022-2023 financial year, the NYDA will target the following: the training of more than 25,000 young people to be youth entrepreneurs, 2,000 youth-owned enterprises will receive financial assistance from NYDA through NYDA grant program. This enterprise will go on to create 6,000 jobs in the economy. 75,000 young people will be provided with skills development programs to enable them to enter the economy. 10,000 young people to be placed in jobs through National Pathway Management Network. 50,000 young people to be recruited in their structured National Youth Service, where young people will earn an income, learn skill, and increase their employability and offer meaningful quality service to their communities. The NYDA will conduct monitoring and evaluation reports on the impact of the grant program, revitalized National Youth Service, and the Community Works Program. Honorable Chairperson, South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. As a result, the department has a bold position to close this chasm by ensuring that there will not be any mega project in the country which exclude women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Accordingly, during March and April 2022, the department, in partnership with Minister of Culture, hosted 2 exhibitions in Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal on the Eastern Seaboard Development to facilitate access to information for women, youth, and persons with disabilities on this development and its value chains to ensure their participation. In March 2022, the department procured an exhibition space at the Africa Energy Indaba held in Cape Town, which provided women in the energy sector space to exhibit their work in order to expose their work to big business in the energy sector throughout the continent. The department held 3 dialogues that focused on renewable energy, financial inclusion, and the best practice models on the empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We are planning to host another Imbizo on the Eastern Seaboard's development at Outrage Zoo at the end of this month in partnership with COPTA and the local municipalities. You will recall that in October 2021, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa launched a Women's Economic Assembly, WECONA, that seeks to unlock at least minimum 40% of all procurement opportunities for women-owned business across sectoral value chains. WECONA developed a strategy to roll out the structure to provinces to ensure that women-owned businesses benefit from preferential procurement processes in all spheres of government and create access to markets in the private sector. I will hold the second WECONA in October 2022. Honorable members, the department continues to strengthen the implementation of the Sanitary Dignity Implementation Framework. In this context, we are working on value chain management within the sanitary dignity process. This includes empowerment through support programs to ensure competence in doing business with government. Honorable Chairperson, we must ensure the full implementation of the threshold for public procurement set at 40% for women, 30% youth, and 7% for persons with disabilities. The department undertook the rapid evaluation in 2021-22, and the findings are disappointing. Only 16% of Black women-owned businesses benefited from in 2020, and 13 in 2021. In construction, 29%, accommodation and food and services industries, 18%, sectors such as transport, wholesale and retailing, and ICT were the lowest, as in between 3 and 6% of women-owned business benefiting. Our main challenge is effectively monitoring and progress of women, youth, and persons with disabilities is due to the lack of access to disaggregate data. Access to data is critical for making evidence-based planning and programming designs and to inform better policy and decision-making. The department is collaborating with Department of Trade and Industry and Competition and other departments towards mainstreaming women, youth, and persons with disabilities into African continental free trade area and development of the African Union Protocol on Women and Trade to facilitate their participation in cross-border trading. Honorable members, to strengthen the disability inclusion in line with UN Convention, AU Protocol, the department has developed and gazetted 2 frameworks on universal access and design and reasonable accommodation. We welcome Cabinet's approval to National Strategic Framework Disability Rights Awareness Raising Campaigns for Persons with Disabilities. The framework seeks to guide both private and public sectors in ensuring the rights of persons with disabilities are protected. One of the barriers to the participation of the economy for persons with disabilities is access to education. Therefore, in 2021, the department, in partnership with the Department of Basic Education, hosted an inclusive education summit to discuss key interventions in increasing access to education for children with disabilities of school-going age. Inclusion of persons with disabilities continues unabated in workplaces. The disaggregated data collected by the DPSA on employment of persons with disabilities in public service show that the public service is at 1% of employment of persons with disabilities. This is significantly lower than the 7% proposed across all public sectors. The research report published by the department on the impact of COVID-19 on persons with disabilities highlights recommendations towards upholding the rights and improving the living conditions of persons with disabilities during situations of disaster. Parliament is in the process of ratifying the AU Protocol on the Rights and Persons with Disabilities, as announced by President in his summer reply. Later this year, the department will convene the Economic Empowerment Summit for Persons with Disabilities in order to plan and design a strategy that will accelerate an inclusive process of persons with disabilities and mainstream economy of the country, including the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. Honorable members, I reported in 2021 budget vote that the department has initiated the implementation of the gender responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation framework. We are continuing with this work across the 3 spheres of government. We will have to broaden this framework to include youth and disability as well. In 2021-2022, we conducted 46 capacity building sessions across the government. At least more than 500 officials have been capacitated on the framework. As I'm speaking here today, the department is presenting this framework at the Provincial Salga Women's Commission, Lekgotla at the Western Cape. Similarly, we are planning to roll out framework at the local government and level and in collaboration with Salga and the Department of Cooperative Governments to capacitate newly appointed councillors. In 2021, the budget vote informed the House that we will undertake analysis of the draft National Department APPs. In this context, the 2021 monitoring and evaluation report showed that this less than 50% of the department were implementing gender budgeting and framework. However, the analysis of the 2022-2023 draft APPs points to great improvement, including of priorities of women, youth, and disabilities in these plans. We are targeting an increase towards 100 by 2024. In 2021, I reported that the department has been engaging with the National Treasury, DPME, and IMF in developing a strategy and roadmap for gender-responsive budgeting. I'm happy to inform the House that there will be rollout of phase 1 of the project over the coming months in by National Treasury. In addition, the department, the department in the partnership with the EU hosted policy dialogue on gender-responsive budgeting in the February 2022, which included over 700 international and national experts to participants. The aim of this dialogue is to foster discussions on the policy directives for gender-responsive budgeting in the country. The South African government and the economy was built on mining and agriculture, with land being a key factor. Therefore, my department has signed an MOU with the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development in order to ensure that women, youth, and persons with disabilities are mainstreamed in agriculture and land redistribution. Honorable Chairperson, in pursuit of the MTSF Priority 7, a better Africa and a better world, the department continues to its commitment to achieve this priority in the following areas. We continue to participate in the African Union Specialized Technical Committees. And in November 2021, the country had a very successful session with Convention of the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination.
Honorable
CEDAW.
Honorable Minister, unfortunately, your time has now expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I will invite from the ANC and recognize the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honorable Ndaba.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Greetings to Honorable Minister, Chief Whip, and Deputy Chief Whip, and honorable members. As the Portfolio Committee on Women, let me start by saying first, House Chair, the ANC supports this budget, vote 20. As the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities, we are tasked with a huge responsibility of overseeing that the conditions of the most vulnerable in our society transforms and improves for the better. It has become a dreadful practice that annually we have to pay condolences to families that have lost their loved ones to the obliterating pandemic of gender-based violence and femicide. This is the second pandemic that we as a country continue to grapple with without success. The fight against gender-based violence and femicide required every fabric of society to confront toxic behaviors and patriarchy. The role of the role to overcoming gender-based violence and femicide, honorable members, can never rest on government alone. It requires all of us, our families, our groups of friends, communities, and the broader society. As the committee conveys its condolences to the Gadi and Mtwa families, along with the countless number of women and children brutally killed that have not reached mainstream media, we are reminded again as a country, the second pandemic of GBV has not dissipated. The committee welcomes the conviction of Chris Latigan for the brutal murder of Jessie Hess and her grandfather back in 2019. But too slow have the wheels of justice turned for the victims and their aggrieved families. More needs to be done, more must be done. This had been the call from the Uyinene Khwetjane Foundation to the committee via a petition through a committee member this year that key to the fight against GBVF is establishment of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. However, this is hinged on the promulgation of enacting legislation. The department must act and move swiftly in this regard because we were informed in the Portfolio Committee House Chair that the bill has been with neglect. I'm sure it's more than 2 months now. This budget is also being considered at a time where, as a country, we are experiencing high levels of unemployment, particularly youth unemployment. It is our responsibility as the Portfolio Committee to ensure that the economic reconstruction and recovery plan and the presidential employment initiatives benefit the disadvantaged, particularly young people. The future lies within our youth, honorable members, and we therefore have the responsibility to safeguard that future. As per the announcement tabling and committee's ATC number 36 of 11 March 2022, the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities Annual Performance Plan for 2022-2023 was tabled for consideration, and the report to the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. The Portfolio Committee, in executing its oversight duties, also considered the revised strategic plans and annual performance plans 2022-23 of the National Youth Development Agency and the Commission for Gender Equality. The Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, in performing its constitutional oversight mandate, engaged with the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, the National Youth Development Agency, CGE, on the respective annual performance plan for 2022-2023 and revised strategic plans on the 3rd, 6th, 4th, and 11 May 2022, respectively. The Auditor General of South Africa also briefed the Portfolio Committee on the 3rd May 2022, having assessed the department and NYDA's APP 2022-2023 financial year. The budget vote report was subsequently adopted on the 17th of May 2022. The department's mandate, I will say table as read because the minister have already presented it. The estimates of national expenditure 2022, I will say table as read because the minister have already presented it. The committee maintained that in order for the department to achieve its 42 targets, it was imperative that these targets are smart and that these give effect to the department's mandate as a regulator. The committee took cognizance of the Auditor General's concerns in this regard, and as such, this will be closely monitored and assessed on a quarterly basis by the Portfolio Committee. The committee welcomes the introduction of the National Youth Development Agency Amendment Bill by the department, but is astutely aware that the long-awaited National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Bill, the Wage Bill, and the Disability Bill has yet to be introduced. These proposed pieces of legislation are incredibly important and should be expedited. Furthermore, the committee is aware that the department intends developing a South African Youth Development Bill and awaits to see what transpires in this regard. The committee welcomes the implementation of the National Youth Policy and Integrated Youth Development Strategy and looks forward to see the outcomes of the implementation in this regard. Just as youth development and mainstreaming is important is gender mainstreaming. As such, the update implementation of the National Gender Policy Framework, as well as the monitoring and evaluation thereof, is critical. Furthermore, House Chairperson, given the continued surge of gender-based violence and femicide in the country, the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on GBV and the prevention strategy, as well as monitoring and evaluation, is key. The committee's recent oversight visit to the Northwest and Gauteng province is testament that even though government is doing, more needs to be done. Improved monitoring and evaluation is key. Government departments must be held accountable for what they have committed in the National Strategic Plan on GBVF. As we are about to adopt this report, we also consider that there is no equality without consideration and inclusion of persons with disabilities. As the Portfolio Committee, we will continue to oversee that the rights of persons with disabilities are protected and promoted. We cannot condone a country where a certain portion of people enjoys privileges and some do not. This House recently agreed to the ratification of the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the rights of persons with disabilities in Africa. Being a signatory to the protocol and the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is not enough. Domestication and enactment is what persons with disability in this country requires. The committee recent oversight visit to the Northwest Secondary School for the Deaf in Leeudoringstad was spurred on by the South African Human Rights Commission 2019 report on the Northwest Provincial Investigative Hearing into the lack of safety and security measures in schools for children with disability.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson Siabong. I thank you.
Your timer was right. At the same time I speak. Honorable members, I will show my face when you have 1 minute left. Every time you see my face, know that you have to wrap up. Honorable Minister, I'm not sure if you want to remain on video as you're doing your work. You can switch off your video. We proceed now. As from the DA, I recognize the Honorable Mpiti.
Thank you, House Chair. The Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, in performing its constitutional oversight mandate, engaged with the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, the National Youth Development Agency, and the Commission for Gender Equality on their respective annual performance plans for 2022-23 financial year. One thing that was clear from this engagement was that we have a department that is completely out of touch with the realities of the most vulnerable South Africans in this country. a minister that has never taken accountability of the many cries of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. This department is a department that is bankrolled by South Africans to do absolutely nothing but to pay the salaries of officials. There's absolutely no successes that can be claimed in this term of parliament by the department. They have been unable to respond decisively to gender-based violence, youth unemployment, and the continued sidelining of the disability community. It's been unresponsive, uncaring, and uncreative in finding the solutions to the problems that we have personally experienced whilst on oversight across the country. Just a few weeks ago, we visited a woman who was bedridden for over 10 years with no wheelchair. The department had promised to assist the woman, and a week later, there was still no assistance. We called the said official who made up all excuses in the world of why the department had failed to help Umam. We have officials here who earn tremendous amount of money for simply not doing the work of helping communities on the ground. There are really some great officials who are trying their best to contribute to the betterment of this country, but unfortunately, they are too few in between. The DA has strongly suggested that the department should ensure that its key performance indicators and targets are smart. This means not allocating millions to a program that only has a key performance indicator about producing a report through the use of consultants. A quick example is how the department will spend 2.3 million for the use of consultants to do work like writing reports and collecting data. One wonders what the officials are doing in this department, whilst there's 19 officials in the department that are paid more than 1.2 million per annum. This does not translate to actual change on the ground. Minister, your reports are not helping. Your imbizos are not working. The people want a department that's fighting for them, a government serving them. People across the country are telling us that they do not see the work of the department on the ground. And that's correct because there is no work that is actually happening on the ground. The Auditor General of South Africa, on its assessment of the department's APP, indicated that the targets of the department are not well structured, not well verified, not well defined, and do not reflect the mandates of the department. The department has constantly lamented about being a regulator instead of an implementer, yet have not been able to finalize frameworks, legislation, and critical policies that needed to be updated. We note with great concern that the department has proposed a merger of programs focusing on the rights of persons with disabilities and youth development with no justification. As it stands, the department's work and image remains poor at society at large. The DA noted with great concern that the CGE can no longer afford or offer legal advice to clients. This matter has been unresolved since 2020. As it stands, the CGE does not have an HOD legal. This leaves many victims and survivors of gender-based violence with one less avenue to find justice. House Chair, the truth about this APP is that it is less for our people and more for the department itself. This is the ANC way, the way of countless bloated entities and unnecessary departments, often with overlapping mandates and functions, all created to distribute a piece of the pie. Too many millions and billions have been blown without substantive change on the ground by this department. What have the successes been? What has been achieved? What tangible change has happened in communities? Honorable members, we must ask ourselves whether this department has genuinely been working for the people. The DA way entails streamlining the work of government and confronting the challenges facing our people. This would mean less money used as a form of patronage in the duplication of bureaucratic functions and offices, and more money actually working for the people. In other words, less money to fund the business of government and more money to fund. Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you.
Thank you. We now proceed, and from the EFF, recognize the Honorable Sonti. Honorable Ndaba, you may switch off your mic, your video.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the EFF reject budget vote 20 on women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Honorable members, we have repeatedly stood on this platform to lament the uselessness of this department, their inability to respond to the many challenges faced by women in this country, their refusal to work with police, with social development and with home affairs in order to a coordinated approach to fight against femicide in this country. Just a few weeks ago, we buried our beloved daughter, Hilary Gadi, rest in peace, my girl, who is one amongst many women who have succumbed to the sadistic violence of men in this country. Also, a few weeks ago, a leader of Abahlali Basemjondolo, Nokuthula Mabaso, was killed in cold blood at the Ekanana informal settlement in KwaZulu-Natal. In February this year, the body of 26-year-old Asiphe Ngoloba was discovered in a shallow canal behind the sanitizer informal settlement in Langa. On the same day, the police in Gugulethu also discovered the body of a 40-year-old woman in a canal on the corners of NY44 and NY45. May all rest in peace. New research by South African Medical Research Council reported that the Eastern Cape was leading in the number of women who get murdered, and that most of these women were killed by their intimate partners. Lusikisiki has the highest number of reported rapes and sexual assault in the country. Minister, you know these statistics. You know the names of these women and children. You hear these stories repeatedly. But what have you done? What has this department done to ensure that woman feel safe in this country, and that those who are victims are provided with shelter and protection? Why are you fiddling while women are dying in their numbers, Minister? Recently, the Human Sciences Research Council realized a report on the state of shelters in this country. The report paints a very sore pictures for those of us who are concerned with the plight of the victims of sexual violence and gender-based violence in this country. Why it is the responsibility of social development to maintain these shelters? It ought to be your responsibility to monitor those shelters meant for abused women and abandoned children, and people with disabilities are well taken care of. You have failed the women of this country. You have failed the youth people of this country, and you have failed the differently abled. The mess that is National Youth Development Agency is proof of the continuing neglect your department has for young people in the country. Today, almost 50% of the population is unemployed. A great number of the unemployed are women and youth, young people, with 74% of youth of working age and are unemployed in this country. You have done absolutely nothing to promote initiatives of young people in their fight against unemployment. This budget offers no new initiatives. It breaks no new ground. It is stale and repetitive. It is ignorant of the great agency needed to deal with the problems of young people and young women in particular. We reject this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Sonti. Honorable Ndaba, please mute. We proceed now to recognize from the IFP the Honorable Hlengwa. Ma'am Hlengwa. Ma'am Hlengwa. Is he on the platform? Let me see.
Chairperson, it's Honourable van der Merwe. Please could you move to the Freedom Front Plus? I will check on Honourable Hlengwa and come back to you.
No problem. I can do that. Now I proceed to the FF Plus and invite the Honourable Briett.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Let's not beat about the bush here. This department is a failure of a department. This department should not exist. Ek het al verskeie kere in debatte met betrekking tot hierdie departement gesê dat ideologies stem ek nie saam met hierdie departement nie. En wanneer ware gelyke geleenthede seëvier, is daar nie 'n behoefte vir so 'n departement nie. Ek praat egter nie vandag oor een van hierdie twee aspekte nie. Hierdie departement faal Suid-Afrika vir al die persone wie die departement ten doel het. Some shocking findings were tabled by the AGSA, and the committee raised a number of concerns. Almost half of their report are in fact concerns, and this is very worrying. Many of the findings had to do with the department's mandate. For reference, I looked at the department mandate again and thought it good to bring it back into the context for this debate. The mission of the department is to provide strategic leadership, coordination and oversight to government departments and the country in mainstreaming empowerment programs on women, youth and persons with disabilities. The priority of the ministry and the department is to ensure that the socio-economic empowerment and rights of women, youth and persons with disabilities are mainstreamed across all sectors of society. It further continues to explain in detail through what mechanisms this is supposed to happen. Here are some of the findings and concerns. The AGSA indicated that the targets of the department are not well structured, not well verified, not well defined, and do not reflect the mandate of the department. Nog 'n hengse probleem as jy my vra. Man kort, die departement faal want dit kan nie sy mandaat uitvoer nie en ek glo nie enige mate van ingryping of geld gaan dit kan omdraai nie. Vrae wat ontstaan het gedurende die afgelope begrotingsproses sluit onder andere in hoe die departement ander regeringsdepartemente aanspreeklik hou vir die stadige of versuiming van uitvoering van daargestelde teikens in verband met vroue, jeugdiges en persone met gestremdhede. Furthermore, there was found that there was a merger of the programs focusing on the rights of persons with disabilities and youth development with no justification provided by the department. A further concern is with regards to the changes in the organizational structure, also without approval from National Treasury. APPs are unclear with targets that do not guarantee service delivery. There are name changes of sub-programs not affected throughout. Voorsitter, 'n naampie hier en 'n plekkie daar gaan nie dit wat institusioneel verkeerd is met hierdie departement regmaak nie. Die herstrukturering is byvoorbeeld al sedert 2019 'n prioriteit wat nie soos 'n prioriteit behandel word nie. The majority of staff are employed within the administration program as opposed to the core programs, and despite this, there are still key critical vacancies in Program 1. To further add insult to injury, 2.3 million rand is budgeted for use of consultants to do the work of the department, i.e. report writing, collecting data, etc. And the question that begs to be asked is what the current staff in the department are doing. The department also has 19 staff members who are paid more than 1.2 million rand per annum, salary levels 13 to 16. Then why, Chairperson, does this department still budget an allocation for consultants to implement programs of this department? Dis so goed ons betaal 2 keer vir 'n burger en kry nie 'n enkele burger nie. It's daylight robbery, if you ask me. The committee had on numerous occasions outlined to this department why it should desist from using consultants given its limited budget and provided recommendations on how to address the matter. Chair, I can continue on this trajectory, but I think my colleagues have and will make mention of that which I have not. Let me rather focus on a project that I really believe in, a project that should be a priority, a project that can truly bring the girl child so much closer to an equal schooling opportunities, and that is the Sanitary Dignity Project. Volgens statistiek mis ten minste 3 uit elke 10 meisies tot 7 skooldae in 'n maand as gevolg van menstruasie. Die verslag vir die komitee oor die implementering van die projek ontvang het, is amper tot op die letter dieselfde as die vorige verslag 2 jaar gelede. Sedertdien is daar 1 opvolgverslag gewees en het slegs 2 provinsies moniteringsverslae ingedien. Bygesê was dit na aanleiding van die komitee se oorsigbesoeke. In die Vrystaat kan ek getuig dat hierdie projekte steeds in kontroversie gedompel is. Daar geen waarde vir geld is nie. Om eerlik te wees, daar is nie eers bewyse vir die geld wat na bewering daarop spandeer is nie. Vroue, jeugdiges en persone met gestremdhede gaan nooit ware gelykheid ervaar, solank as hierdie departement nog bestaan en die ANC met ideologiese benadering tot probleme in beheer is nie. Ek dank u, voorsitter.
Thank you. Thank you. May I just find out if the Honorable Sengwa is back, Honorable Merve? Are you able to assist? I will have to proceed to the DA and call on the Honorable Sharif as I hand over to my co-chairperson, the Honorable Lesoma. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you, House Chairperson. We're looking at the APPs for both the Commission of Gender Equality and the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. There is a stark contrast between the two. What is absolutely shocking is that the CGE, with a budget of 100.7 million rand, is able to do 10 times more of the work with half of the budget when compared to the department with a budget of 205.1 million rand. The CGE has released reports around the failure of government departments to implement strategies to fight against the oppression of women. The lack of accountability to the CGE is unacceptable. The CGE must look at ways to ensure their reports, findings, and recommendations are taken seriously. Spending millions of rands doing numerous investigations and research must yield results, especially as a Chapter 9 institution that has its mandate given directly by the Constitution. The lack of accountability is one of the reasons we keep moving backwards thanks to this failing ANC government. In terms of budget, the CGE has to ensure that they use all of the budget allocated in reaching targets. The returning of 19 million rand to Treasury is extremely concerning, especially when they argue that a lack of an adequate budget is constraining the work they do. The Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities has been going through an identity crisis for the last few years since the proclamation by the President in 2019 to merge women, youth and persons with disabilities into one department. We have seen the mandate, the vision and the actual work that needs to get done change year on year. The impact of this means that policies and programs of the department do not get implemented and pushed to the side because they need to reevaluate what they're actually doing. We can see a clear example of this, House Chairperson, with the Emergency Response Action Plan on GBVF that has been reported by the department as being scrapped, noting they were the worst performing department when reaching their ERAP targets. The continuous redesign of the department's organizational structure and the continuous delays in implementation of targets impact South Africans in the most severe ways. The Wedge Bill, the Disability Rights Bill, is delayed, and this includes the National Council on GBVF that has not yet been established. Treasury had allocated 15 million rand for the establishment of the NCGBVF over a 3-year period, with 5 million being paid in each financial year starting in 2020. And yet, in 2022, nothing. With these delays, we are seeing women, youth, and persons with disabilities continue to suffer in this country every single day. We're looking at the department's APP for 22-23. It is evident that the targets are not smart. It does not reflect on the mandate of the department as a regulator. This APP will be difficult to monitor and evaluate in terms of their targets being implemented, and oversight is therefore hindered. But maybe that's the whole plan. The department is not convincing in terms of their capacity to do more and is not fit enough to make changes in the lives of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. South Africa deserves better. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now I'll recognize Honourable van der Merwe of the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson, and our apologies for Honourable Hlengwa not being able to speak. She's been affected by load shedding. Honourable Chairperson, policy development and drafting of legislation means very little if there's no real ambition to finalise such statutory measures, and above all, if there are no real enforcement of these tools once adopted. The Department of Women, Children and People with Disabilities proudly stresses in its latest annual performance plan that it has developed 3 key pieces of legislation. These relate to the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Bill, the National Youth Development Agency Amendment Bill, and the Promotion of Women's Rights, Empowerment and Gender Equity Bill. The department, however, fails to provide any targets relating to these critical bills. How is the committee to monitor any progress or oversight if these bills are not finalized? The department also fails to recognize the delay in introducing these bills. The National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide provides for the establishment of an important multi-sectoral National Council on GBV and Femicide, which essentially provides for strategic leadership in the fight against GBV and Femicide. This critical bill was only published in October 2021 by the department after years of protest and countless promises by government that it is serious about eliminating GBV and Femicide. One of the first steps promised by government was the establishment of this council. Yet many years later, we are once more faced by our government's empty promises in this regard. The IFP strongly endorses the Portfolio Committee's recommendation that the department must urgently provide specific targets to the development of this bill and the finalization of the establishment of this council. The Sanitary Dignity Policy Framework provides vital norms and standards for the provision of sanitary products for vulnerable girls and young women, especially those living in rural areas. The monitoring of this framework should be a high priority for this department. However, once again, we have seen very little enforcement or proper oversight over this framework. The IFP agrees with the Portfolio Committee's observation that there seems to be no uniformity in the rollout of this framework. This is simply unacceptable and should no longer be tolerated. The sanitary dignity of our vulnerable girls and young women cannot be compromised by the failure of this government to ensure effective oversight. Lastly, the IFP strongly agrees with the Portfolio Committee's observations on the use of consultants by the department. It is really concerning that 2.3 million is budgeted for the use of consultants to effectively do the work of this department. One of the main cost drivers under goods and services is the use of consultants, which is incomprehensible considering the financial constraints experienced by government, this department, and Treasury in general. The IFP strongly agrees that the recommendations that there must be an effective transfer of skills from these consultants to the department officials, and the IFP will closely monitor this recommendation. We cannot continue to bear witness to such wastage and such dismal performance by this department. Chairperson, in conclusion, we expect better for the most vulnerable. We expect better for those living with disabilities, and we expect better for the women and children who continue to face war on our streets, at home, and in the workplace. They deserve better than what this department is delivering. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now, Honourable Members, you'll forgive me, I'm a little bit darker because of the load shedding where I am. However, I will now recognize Honourable Shongo from the ANC.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. Greetings to the Minister of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Honourable Members, Sanwanan. Honourable Chairperson, today marks exactly 20 days since 6-year-old Bonche Mashiane from Mkanduzweni in Mpumalanga disappeared. We played with our police and society to help the family find this young and innocent soul. This happens after a young woman, Hilary Gadi, was brutally murdered by old men. We again plead with our justice system to make sure that these old men are behind bars where they belong. Clearly, they do not belong in our societies. Honorable members, young people in South Africa are the most vulnerable, with unemployment levels at its highest. It is unavoidable that the COVID-19 pandemic has had a dreadful impact to our society and the economy. A number of people lost their jobs, their source of income, and are unable to provide for their families. This, in turn, further exacerbates the already high levels of poverty and deepening inequality. However, as South Africans, we are resilient. Not all is lost. Honorable House Chairperson, our focus as the African National Congress is to rebuild the economy through the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan and implementing it, which will curb the high levels of unemployment. It is an unemployment stimulus to create jobs and sustain livelihoods. We have to continuously mainstream young people and women into the various sectors of the economy, particularly those sectors that they are least represented in, like the mining sector and the agricultural sector. We acknowledge that the causes of unemployment in South Africa can be attributed to lack of education and training, labor demand and skills mismatch, and lack of interest for entrepreneurship. Ours as government is to turn this around. We have to ensure that young people in particular have the necessary skills that are required in the labor market. We have to drive the innovations and support the programs that are aimed at increasing an interest to entrepreneurship. If we are to attain our goals of the NDP of realizing a 6% unemployment rate and 11 million additional jobs by 2030, we have to address the main drivers of unemployment in our country and develop our economy. Today, as the African National Congress, we are adamant that the budget does intend to try and mitigate the triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. In mitigating the high levels of unemployment amongst the youth, as the ANC, we realize that we have to advance the socio-economic empowerment of young people. The onus thus rests upon the department to review the national youth policy and legislation, such as the National Youth Development Agency Amendment Bill, and therefore report on the recommendations. The significance of this bill is that it will prioritize interventions that support skills development and foster employment. These include the provision of support for young entrepreneurs, learnership programs, and the implementation of youth programs. As the African National Congress, we are pleased to note that over the medium-term period, the NYDA will focus on providing interventions to support the creation of decent employment and the development of skills and encourage entrepreneurship for all young people. These interventions will take place in the form of financial and non-financial support to enable young people to access skills and jobs, establish and sustain enterprises, and gain access to markets. For financial support is provided through grants to townships and rural enterprises owned by young people, whereas non-financial support includes accounting, website development, business plan writing, and marketing. Honorable members, as the ANC, we welcome that a large proportion of the budget has been allocated to Program 2 of the NYDA budget. This program will assist young people to gain access to socio-economic opportunities, viable business opportunities through entrepreneurship, increased access to the economy through the various sectors, including the agriculture, construction, and including the secondary sector of the economy. These programs will also focus on upskilling a number of young people to allow them the required skills in the job market. As the African National Congress, we also welcome the new increased targets of the NYDA, a clear indication of understanding the gravity of the challenges that young people face. These new targets will help assist foster innovation and support young and upcoming entrepreneurs. Honorable members, we have to understand the importance of entrepreneurship in the value chain. It also helps assist in the creation of jobs and job opportunities, which then seeks to deal with the matter of unemployment and poverty. Such initiatives have to be supported. Honorable House Chairperson, we are pleased to know that an additional allocation of 450 million has been made to extend the National Youth Services for another 2 years, enabling approximately 35,000 job opportunities per year. The NYDA has also The NYDA also has the responsibility to ensure that young people benefit from the National Pathway Management Network, which is a presidential youth employment intervention initiative to decrease the unemployment rate in South Africa. The first two phases of the presidential employment stimulus programs were launched in October 2020 and have supported over 850,000 opportunities. More than 80% of these participants were young people and over 60% were women. We are adamant that this year there will be even more youth and women that benefit from these initiatives to limit the scourge of unemployment and poverty. We remain confident that the Social Employment Fund will create a further 50,000 job opportunities using the capability of organizations beyond government in areas such as agriculture, early childhood development, public art, and tackling gender-based violence. Honorable House Chairperson, the most important aspect of this vote is that it will uplift the lives and livelihoods of many young people and women at large. A budget should always be responsive to the socio-economic challenges that the country faces. Young people are not lazy. Young people need to be granted the necessary platforms and opportunities for them to thrive. As the African National Congress, we are well aware of the frustrations of young people. We are well aware of the frustration caused by the pandemic. Let me take this moment to recognize the strains that the mental health has put on our youth. Ours as government is to respond to the dire challenges that our young people face and therefore approve budgets that will be beneficial to the needs of the youth and the nation. That is why as the ANC we support vote 20 of women, youth and persons with disabilities. Ngiyabonga.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I'll recognize Honorable Sukers of SADP. Over to you, ma'am. Honorable Sukers.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The South African taxpayer is investing 987.3 million into the budget of this department. The ACDP notes the announced paradigm shift from facilitation to regulatory in the annual performance plan. It is within this context that we wish to provide comment on this budget vote. Women are disproportionately affected by the economic and social crises in our country. During this lockdown period, the conditions in our communities deteriorated with extreme levels of poverty affecting women, youth, and people living with disabilities. There has been a significant focus given to the war in Ukraine, but the truth is that there is a low-intensity war in our communities, especially here in the Western Cape. I received calls from my constituency that are desperate. One such a call was last night when two young people lost their lives violently, a few streets apart in the same neighborhood. If we should do a body count on the killings that happen in communities on the Cape Flats, the totals will be staggering. Trauma is a daily reality for women in our country. And if you live in communities such as Seawinds, Lavender Hill, or Mitchell's Plain, the exposure to violence is a daily occurrence. We acknowledge the Minister of Social Development and the department for the coming out on oversight to facilitate dialogue with our communities and NGOs in the Southern Peninsula. We need more ministers and their departments to respond to the issues of violence and gangsterism, which is a major threat to the national security of this country. Young women are sold for drugs to gangs. These are the horrific stories, Minister, that we encounter every day that requires a multifaceted approach. It is therefore our call that this department and its entities, the Commission for Gender Equality and the National Development Agency, for them to pay attention to the root causes that drives gangsterism and violence in these areas. The ACDP questions what the shift of the department and its organizational changes will mean in real terms. How will this strategic focus of this department assist women and youth on the Cape Flats? What directives and regulations will be issued and enforced to ensure that the departments tasked with overseeing the safety and security of our people are focusing on the key issues of violence and inequality that drives the crises women face in our communities? On behalf of the communities that the ACDP serves, these are the questions we seek answers to in this budget vote. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Now I recognize Honourable Sheikh Imam. My apology, Honourable Members, once more. I'm flying. There's a load shedding where I am. You may proceed, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yes, I've got more than load shedding. I'm told there's a total blackout. I hope you can see me. But Chairperson, let me start off by saying that the National Freedom Party will support the budget vote tabled here today. However, allow me to raise some of my concerns. 7 women die every day or murdered in this country. 123 women are raped in South Africa on a daily basis. 1/5 of all women are physically abused by their partners in this country. Now, added to that is the problem that only 4% of children live with their fathers, or over 50% of children live with their mothers. But 77% of all children in this country live with one parent. Now, surely that tells us that that will lead to dysfunctional families, because no child is born a rapist or a murderer or a perpetrator of violence. So the question that we need to again ask, what has gone wrong? Why has it gone wrong? When has it gone wrong? And what are we going to do to correct it? Now, we talk about the targets we set with gender equity. We talk about particularly those that are physically challenged. Let's start with the National Assembly. 400 members of parliament. Are we complying? Clearly not. Now, let's look at the issue of CEOs of women in South Africa. Only 11.8% of women in this country hold CEO positions in South Africa, and only about 20% of them hold managerial positions in the country. Now, I want to call upon the department, particularly with these dysfunctional families, should we not put in measures to ensure that any father that refuses to pay or neglects to pay child maintenance or is not in a child's life should not and must not be employed by the state? Maybe that's where we need to start, over and above ensuring that they pay, if they cannot be in the lives of these children, because this is the root cause of what we're having in terms of dysfunctional families. And I think as the state, we should start there and not allow them to be employed by the state. Let me go one step further. There is not enough being done to protect these women and these children from absent fathers, including when you talk about maintenance. And particularly, I want to raise the concern of those that are in self-employment, because there's no measures to track their income. And for that reason, they exploit the situation and end up not paying maintenance for these children. Now, the statistics in terms of children that are going to school. Why is it that so many members of families are not ensuring that their children must go to school so that we can create a better society or a future generation of leaders? Are you telling me my time is up?
I guess so. I need to say so. Thank you very much.
Chair, the NFP will support, and you keep flying, Chair.
We are so out of order, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, we shall proceed. Now I recognize Honourable Hendricks of Aljama. Honourable Hendricks. We shall proceed, Honourable Members. In light, it seems like Honourable Member is not here. I will recognize Honourable Ngobo of the DA. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, House Chairperson. The Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities continues to fail persons with disabilities in the country. It has failed to change their living conditions for the better. It has failed to remove the barriers which keep them locked out of opportunity. As the South African Human Rights Commission has noted, households headed by persons with disabilities have less access to basic services than households headed by persons without disabilities. Many NGOs in the disability sector, some of which the DA has visited in the past, are also struggling financially. Without proper funding for them, vulnerable South Africans living with disabilities are at risk of homelessness and losing access to dignified care and education. The department has also failed to prioritize the development of the Disability Rights Bill. In its annual performance plan for the 2022-23 financial year, the department does not mention the development of this bill as a separate target, which will make the monitoring of the development of the bill very difficult for the committee. This is concerning, given that the committee has been calling for the speedy development of this piece of legislation for quite some time now. House Chairperson, what is also concerning is that the department does not have a proper stakeholder database that is updated on an ongoing basis, which explains clearly why many disability rights organizations are being left out when the department conducts outreach programs. The department states that the purpose of Program 4 in its annual performance plan is to promote good governance regarding the rights and social and economic empowerment of youth and persons with disabilities. It further states that in the current financial year, it will support, monitor, and coordinate government's implementation of the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities. However, it is very difficult to imagine how the department will do this, given that the targets it has set under this program are not smart enough to achieve this purpose. It is hard to imagine how simply developing one draft evaluation report on the implementation of the white paper on the rights of persons with disabilities is going to support and coordinate government's implementation of the white paper. The questions for you, Minister, are: for how long must persons with disabilities in the country suffer before the department rise to the occasion and do what it is supposed to do? For how long must persons with disabilities remain excluded before the department start prioritizing their issues? For how long must they wait before the department actually starts developing the Disability Rights Bill? Now is the time for action, Minister. Now is the time for you and your department to start listening to persons with disabilities in the country and take effective measures to change their lives for the better. And the starting point will be to speedily develop the Disability Rights Bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Now I recognize Honorable once more Al-Jama. We shall proceed, Honorable Member, which means Al-Jama forfeits its speaking rights for now. Then we'll proceed to Honorable Piri of the ANC. Over to you, ma'am.
Minister wa rena mme maite nkwana mashaba kitamishe le sebepiso bolo me majodina mo le motshare le deputy ane maputi di she maloko ka moka a parlamente a leng gona boshung ba tshitla le khono kere before I be chair, allow me to first pay my condolences to the numerous families that have lost loved ones through the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide. As my chair had previously stated, it has indeed been a hindrance pattern that every year we pay condolences to the victims of gender-based violence and femicide and commemorate those that we have lost. It begs the question of why does such a vicious pattern continues to persist in our country? Why are women continuously being obliterated in our country? We also have to acknowledge that gender-based violence and femicide affect particularly those that are vulnerable in our society, women, children, and persons belonging to the community of LGBTIQA+. As the ANC, we've acknowledged that gender-based violence has reached its crisis and proportion in our country, and it affects every community and touches the lives of the most families in one way or the other. We note and understand that these manifestations are deeply in the patriarchal system that is embedded in the system and traditions of our society or our country. That is why, as a country, we have to continuously support institutions such as the Commission for Gender Equality and the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability. Our objectives on the stand on women and vulnerable have always been clear as the ANC. We recognize and understand that our struggle will never be complete without the socio-economic emancipation of women. We have always emphasized the support for the rights of persons with disabilities and children, combat sexism, and ensure that the violence of women is fully heard, and that all women and youth are represented in all sectors of our society. However, we know that responding and combating gender-based violence require a multi-sectoral approach, which led to the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. Honorable members, we shall always be in support on a mechanism that aims to address matters on gender-based violence. Importantly today, we have to understand how this budget vote 20 will assist us to the challenges that we are facing. Honorable PT and Honorable Sheriff, as the ANC, we are a caring government. We welcome the budget allocation to the Commission for Gender Equality over the 100 million for the year 2022 and 2023 financial year from National Treasury, which is a nominal increase from the previous budget, that of 2021-2022. To us, honorable members, this is an indication that the matter of gender equality and advocacy of the vulnerable is being taken seriously by the ANC and the CGE that is led by the ANC. We hope that the increased allocation on the Program A of budget on CGE continued transformation agenda in both the private and public sector through legislation. We hope that the specific focus will be emphasized on private sector to evaluate legislation policies, practice, and making to ensure that they are in line with the prescript. Understanding that the fights against gender-based violence and femicide require to be strengthened, we therefore welcome continued effort to require to be strengthened. We therefore welcome the continued effort curb the scourge of abuse. We have long awaited the establishment of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence. We therefore welcome the fact that it will be launched during the financial year and that an estimated 15 million has been allocated over the medium term towards this program under the program of mainstreaming women's rights and advocacy. Noting that Parliament passed the 3 gender-based violence and femicide bills, it is of significance to see that these bills benefit the public, particularly victims of gender-based violence. It is our responsibility to ensure that knowledge on these bills have to reach members of the public. We therefore encourage the Commission for Gender Equality to continue to conduct advocacy initiatives and public education interventions in the promotion of public understanding of gender equality and access to gender justice. Honorable members, it is fruitless to pass bills the intended beneficiaries are not aware of them or the knowledge of these existing bills and how they can benefit from them. We also partake information sharing in all constituencies to ensure that members of the public know their rights and how the law protects them to ensure adequate access to justice. We are now in the era of digital technology and we should embrace the 4th industrial revolution. We should utilize the digital media and platform to spread helpful information with regard to gender-based violence and femicide. We appreciate that the department and the commission have reached to over 48 million people using their information and communication initiatives. We hope that during the financial year, this year, they will be able to reach out to even more people than the previous year. We are awaiting the second phase to implement the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. And the strategy is of the great significance. We hope that the department will continue to monitor the implementation of the plan and monitor it and accessibly to Zela care centers, all centers that are meant to benefit victims of violence. We also have to ensure that our centers do cater for people belonging to the LGBTQI+ community. They must be inclusive. Most importantly, it is of significance that the department hold the departments accountable for not implementing the NSP or including it into their strategic plans. Consequence management is led in this regard. Honorable Sonti, the department joins hands with all stakeholders, and the department has a good interdepartmental other department as part of its role for the rights of the people with disability. The department has developed frameworks, guidelines on how department can best advance the include people with disabilities in all government processes and programs. Over the MTF period, in the partnership with the South African Law Reform Commission, the department aims to develop disability rights legislations and policies in the areas such as advocacy for people with disability and develop all metrics and monitoring and evaluation framework for the 2015 white paper on the rights of persons with disability in order to guide department on implementation priorities. These initiatives are expected to be expenditure of 49.3 million over the medium term in the advocacy and mainstreaming of rights of persons with disability sub-programs, the mainstreaming of youth and persons with disability rights and advocacy program. This is in addition the past SADC protocol of the rights of persons with disability. This is a program being done, honorable members. When you are saying there's nothing that this department is not is doing well, you are not putting it correct. The department is doing a lot. This budget, honorable members, will benefit those that are most disadvantaged in our communities. It will also strengthen the fight against gender-based violence and continue and ensure access to justice. In the it's of our former code, freedom cannot be achieved. Women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. Close quote. It was said by the great statement.
Thank you very much, honorable member. Honorable members, now I'll recognize the honorable minister for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. Over to you, ma'am.
I wish we had more time. We came straight into this conversation with your good selves of the budget, where we are participating partly in the first international labor organizations, the initiative to stop child employment or children's work, that children should be at school and not at work. Child labor, to stop child labor. You know, if one was still in that particular place, or if one would take those people who were in that particular place and bring them into this room and hear that the whole world think South Africa is on track and South Africa needs support, and that there's a lot that they can learn from this country, and many of those things they pick up from the things we do as a department. You know, the saying of it takes a village to raise a child. They say they now know, they picked it up they come from all over the world. They picked it up from South Africa, but now they now know that the community means the entire society needs to take care of issues of gender-based violence and femicide. As Honorable Imam Sheikh had said, it takes not only a village, but community and all of us to do things right. That's why we have joined the district development model, because may those who have been slaughtered, killed by their loved ones and by third souls, women, rest in peace, but they are killed in a locality. That particular locality does not necessarily need women only, or the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability only. It needs the village. It needs all of us to deal with such issues. Absentee fathers cannot raise children. Children are not raised by money. Children are raised by father and mother. So said Sheikh Imam, and we agree. I think, Honorable Piri, you've said a mouthful, and we don't have to repeat because we do not have time, but we appreciate what you said, including the support we got from you and the chair and chair of the portfolio and many others. I almost said comrades, but honorable members, let us tell the truth that the targets that we set for the department, even the Auditor General rejected. It is not the whole truth. They were called back and they emphasized that they support that work. Yes, we work with other countries because we do not have money. We will never, the department is not a delivery department. It is a department that does advocacy and regulation and work with monitoring and evaluation. So we cannot be responsible for every other husband who decides, I am not too drunk today, I can kill my wife. These things must stop. But the reality, the painful reality is indeed that it is confirmed that out in every 3 hours, a woman is killed in South Africa by somebody or someone she knows. So we work with the international community, and we work with some agencies, and there's work that we are also even doing in Lusikisiki. Let me tell you this, that when we receive support, either through Treasury or through other agencies abroad, we make sure that we plow them back into the society and help train. It's as I judge the IMC on with other 5 ministers that monitors on this matter of GBVF. It is our government that had taken a stand that when we negotiate for something to happen, like gender-based violence and femicide, council to be launched, it will go through NEDLEC. So NETLEC, that's where the discussions are at NETLEC, not with us. They received this beginning of the year from us, and we will wait till the end of the month to get feedback, because there's absolutely nothing to hide. We are the ones who make statements, but statements alone do not bring our people back, particularly mothers. So let us work together. There is no need to fight. There's a need for all of us, particularly this department, to make sure that women, girls, young girls, mothers are safe, to keep our nation safe. And this department was supposed to be encouraging more participation of women in the economy, that when the economy is renewed, with the renewal of the economy, women get an opportunity not to participate like they did in the past, but that we be part of the planning phase of the renewal of the economy of South Africa, so that we can become full participants. Sanitary dignity, yes, we agree sanitary dignity has to be led by women, but we work with the Ministry of Social Development. We both agree that it should not necessarily be the responsibility of the others but ourselves. Here in KwaZulu-Natal, where people have been visited by floods and lives have been lost and their souls rest in peace, we were the first with the government here to arrive in those shelters, not only to say our shame, but also to help share the little we had with the communities here, with sanitary dignity handouts, which were highly appreciated. I was with Minister Zulu, and we will continue doing that. The sanitary, where there's money, a little bit of money, it is sent directly for sanitary dignity by Treasury to the provinces, and the provinces themselves see to it to say, this is how we will utilize, or this department will be better placed to take care of our people. Let us take this opportunity to work together, remembering what Wangari Maathai of Kenya and Mayor Gertrude Shope said, we fought for freedom. What will you be remembered for? Let us do things that help protect and make lives, in particular of women, better in this era, working together. It is our responsibility, it is our honor to serve. The bills that you are referring to, which on GBVF, that comes with the justice, these things were discussed. They come through the IMC, which we chair. We encourage this. We also encourage that there be 40 new courts that will be focused on issues of gender-based violence. We also encourage.
I'm afraid, Honorable Minister, I'm afraid your time is up, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Bumma lebontate. Tsela e thata fela mari trechimbushedi gona a re bolokisheng ke a leboga.
Re a leboga le rona, Honorable Minister. Honorable members, that concludes the debate and the business of this virtual mini plenary session. Now, honorable members, the mini plenary will now rise. Thank you very much.
Masibonge sihlalo.